Well, welcome to another vlog, and this time I've returned to an old favourite of mine. It's a little stand of birch trees that sits in a very marshy area, and I was reminded of just how marshy that area is this morning when I went in over my wellies into the frozen water. As you can see, the rushes around me are frozen. The sun is coming up for the first time this morning. And I've spent the last hour or so taking abstracts of the birches and the light hitting the oak forest in the background. And I've really enjoyed the last hour, because to get conditions like that driving down here to the Glendalough area this morning, I was wary of black ice on the roads, but the roads were quite dry. So it does pay to revisit a location a number of times with different weather conditions. But having frosted branches, look at this birch. The little tips of the branches are still frosted. There's no leaves left. But in many respects, this time of year, early December, as autumn gives way into winter, is a magical time to photograph woodlands, particularly areas of open and birch woodland, open to frost, because this frosted area, this white frost on the grasses, is absent from within the forest and within the bilberries and the froggins and the undergrowth there. Now, this was planned to be a vlog about autumn woodland photography, but unfortunately my hard drive fell off a desk. It was a little bit clumsy of me, and I lost the footage from those vlogs and the images associated with it. In the past 4 or 5 visits down to the Glendalough area, I've explored a new area for me, which is high above the slopes of Glendalough into the oak woodlands. And it's a very, it is a truly chaotic area for woodland. We all know that woodland photography is about trying to make sense of the various forms and structures, the verticals of the trees and the branches and the colour, and using the light to complement and to make a photograph. But in truth, the probably 12 or 13 hours of walking through the upper reaches of the Glendalough Valley, primarily oak wood with some beech interspersed, has produced very little in the way of photography. But I have found 1 or 2 areas that I may return to. And similar to this area of birches that I happened upon a number of years ago, I've returned time and time again. This is probably my 7th or 8th time, just in this little area that I'm standing in. And I took several images this morning, wider images of the grasses and the birches, and images around 100, 120 mil, just taking in the upper areas of the branches, real abstracts as such, with regards to just having one structure, one branch, and just a light hitting the smaller branches and backlit beautifully by that oak forest. And it's a real tip when taking woodland photography is exclude the sky. And if you can get the light hitting the back of the area, it really does make for some beautiful images. Maybe not beautiful compositions, but in themselves, those abstract images, I think, stand alone and don't need as much of a consideration of composition, because the light and the beauty that we're all trying to capture of woodlands and of landscapes are there to see. Well, I haven't ventured far from the birch grove, and as I wandered down to the riverbank here, a group of kayakers have just gone by. There's a kingfisher making its way up the river, and it's just magical. And even though that light's getting brighter, look at this beautiful tree. Now, making a composition of it, that's really the challenge here, but it's lovely and beautifully lit here. We've got the main trunk of the tree, you know, covered in moss. And look at it, backlit. And there's a little fern there, just growing on the actual branch. And I'm underexposing quite a good bit, maybe half a stop. So we'll move on to the next location, and I'll put a few of the photographs that I've taken this morning up there now. Well, yesterday afternoon, I decided to pack up and go home because the light just became too unappealing to photograph in. And I've returned this morning to the same birch, marshy birch area here beneath the oak and beech forest. There was a mist forecast for this morning, and it's there, it's quite subtle, but it certainly does add a different feel to the landscape compared to the bright, frosty morning. And you can see that in the tones that are present in the birches around me. So the reason that I've returned this morning to the birch woodland is to photograph the same images or similar images in a totally different atmosphere. And I think it amplifies what I mentioned in yesterday's vlog in the value of returning to a location again and again in different seasons and with different weather conditions. And it builds a familiarity with a location. And I'm very conscious that I've never seen another photographer here. I've actually never seen another person walk down here. A few deer, a couple of badgers down the far end. So there's that sense of not quite ownership, but it feels as if it's my little spot. And there is something special about that. And I know the photographs that I take here are personal and they might not have a wide appeal. Well, I've had to navigate myself into this location, this specific area beside the main subject, if you could call it that. This single birch tree amongst several smaller and slimmer trunked birch trees. I'm not saying that the birch tree here jumps out in the scene, but it is the most dominant feature in the image. And yesterday the grasses beneath me were white and frosted, and I think I excluded them from the image and focused on the whiteness that was in the branches above me here. today it's very different, and there's quite nice warm colours in the grasses. So I've angled the camera down a little bit and to capture that warmth. And instead of the frost providing the highlights in the upper branches here, it's the droplets of water. But they're as effective at doing so. So let's take this image and we'll put yesterday's image up of the frosted birches and this morning's image of the misty and droplet-filled upper branches, and just to compare the two. So let's meander on through this beautiful birch grove, and I'm noticing the mist is descending around me, so that will add to the scene again. So I took the polarizer out of the bag, and it certainly added to the scene. Whilst the polarizer does tend to cut through mist and in many respects adds a type of clarity, it also enriches the colours, and the greens, particularly the mosses at the bottom of the birch trees here, are beautifully saturated, and I like that. So the image I'll put up now is of this scene taken with the polarizer. I've switched to f11. I have been shooting at f8 and focusing on the main subject and letting the background be a little bit out of focus, just to add a sense, that ethereal feel to it. But for this image, I thought it was appropriate to have everything sharply in focus, from the grasses at the front to the trunk to the birches at the back. So let's move on and see what else there is to be had here. So I'm right in the middle of the marsh here. Every footstep has to be carefully taken, or I'll find myself with wellies filled to the brim of cold water. I've only moved 10 yards, so the previous little vlog was on the far side of this tree, looking in this direction. But this is a much more pleasing image. I've put that tree, the birch, centre stage. I've excluded the sky. There's some fir trees in the background. So again, I've focused a little bit down to exclude any sky here. And the whole background to this subject here, this beautiful birch, and I get a little shower there from the droplets coming off it, is nicely separated from the stands of birches behind. And the fir trees in the distance provide a nice darkness behind that space. Lovely grasses around, and I've brought them into the frame. But there's an openness about this image, simply because of the nature of it. The single birch tree in the forefront of the image, and the space that the birches provide in the background. Well, the mist now is accompanied by drizzle, and the light is decreasing. And I've come to a more mature grove of birch trees that I've wandered through before and haven't seen any compositions. And it's testament to the qualities of mist, that compositions can reveal themselves in a misty, foggy setting. Now, time isn't on my side. I'm about to pack up and go. So, I hope you've enjoyed the vlog. I'm going to pot around these birch for 10 or 15 minutes. Try to find a final composition of the day. Next time around, I may switch back to a little bit of wildlife photography. But I hope you've enjoyed the vlog. And if you have, please subscribe. So until next time, thanks very much for watching.